Hi, if you are living in Sweden and you are investing without using an ISK, you are probably making one of the biggest financial mistake and ended up paying even more tax than you actually need to. Well, Sweden has an impression of the country with a very high taxes, and up to the point it is very true. But when it comes to the taxes on investment, especially on the equity side, then Sweden actually is one of the most tax efficient country in the world. And the reason is ISK. In many other country, you need to pay around 20 to 30% of the capital gain tax every time when you sell your investments. But in Sweden, it works completely different. And in this video, I'm gonna explain you what actually ISK is, how it is taxed, and why it is so powerful, and when it's not a good idea to invest through an ISK, and some common mistake that I have seen the people usually make with respect to their investment. So by the end of this video, you will completely understand whether ISK is right for you or not. So let's simply start. Well, ISK stands for the Investeringssparkonto in Swedish language, and in English language it means investment saving account. In this account, you can buy or sell individual stocks, ETF or any kind of the fund. It's a special investment account introduced by the Swedish government to make the investment easier and the most tax efficient. So in this account, instead of paying the taxes on capital gain, dividend and every time you sell your investment, instead of that you can simply pay yearly tax based on the value of your portfolio. The core advantage of ISK is a very simple taxation process, no reporting of every trade and no capital gain tax calculation. This model is well regulated by the Swedish tax agency Skatteverket. Now let's understand how ISK tax actually works. This is where the most of the people got confused, so let's break it down clearly. With ISK, you actually do not need to pay 30% of the capital gain tax on the profit and the dividend directly. Instead, you pay a yearly standard tax based on the average value of your portfolio and the government loan interest rate. And most importantly, if the value of your portfolio is less than or equal to 300,000 kroner, then you do not need to pay any tax at all. So let's understand this with an example. Suppose the value of your portfolio on 1st of Jan is 50,000 kroner and on 1st of April it's 90,000 kroner. And if the value of your portfolio on 1st July is 160,000 kroner and on 1st of October it's 220,000 kroner. And let's say over the year you have deposited around 180,000 kroner during the whole year. Now you have to calculate the sum of your portfolio in each quarter and the total deposits value during the year. So for this case, this value is around 700,000 kroner. And as I said, you do not need to pay any tax up to the value of 300,000 kroner. So your total taxable amount will be remain only up to the 400,000 kroner. Now you need to multiply the 400,000 kroner with the standard government loan interest rate. This interest rate is 3.55% for the current financial year, that is year 2026. Then your flat rate income will be 14,200 kroner only. Now you need to pay 30% tax on 14,200. So at the end, you need to pay around 4,260 kroner in the form of tax. I'm showing you all this calculation just for your knowledge, but in reality, you do not need to calculate anything by yourself. Everything will be calculated automatically by the company where you have your ISK account, and they will report your tax directly to the Swedish tax agency. So it will be appear as a pre-filled in your tax return. You just simply need to check and approve it while filing the tax. Now let's discuss one by one why ISK is so powerful way to create the wealth in Sweden. The number one, there is no capital gain tax while you are selling your holdings. As I mentioned earlier, the biggest advantage of ISK is that you do not need to pay insane percent of the profit as a capital gain. In many other countries, you need to pay around 20 to 30% of the tax on your profit when you are selling your holdings. However, in ISK, you are free to rebalance your portfolio, switch between the funds without worrying about triggering the tax. That gives you a lot of flexibility and the freedom to apply the different strategies in your portfolio. The second point, the ISK is a long-term win for the investors. Historically, stock market returns are lying in between 7 to 10% annually over the long period of time. And in Sweden, you do not need to pay any tax on the actual profit. Just imagine your investment is growing by 8% in a year, and in ISK, you pay around only 1% of your account value. So your net growth is still roughly around 7%. On the other side, if you are using the traditional brokerage account, then you need to pay around 30% of the tax on the profit, which would ultimately reduce your return significantly. And the real magic happens over the time because the tax is low, predictable, and the more money you stay invested, and that continuously compound year after year. So over the 10, 20, and 30 year, this difference become huge. Now the point number 3 that makes ISK so powerful is that lot of encouragement from the Swedish government to participate in the investment, and it works quite effectively. Well, Sweden is one of the highest retail stock ownership across Europe, and ISK is one of the important reason behind that. ISK is ideal for the long-term investors, ETF investor, index fund investor, and the Swedish stocks investor, and the people who want the simplicity in their investment. So if you are living and paying the taxes in Sweden, ISK is usually the biggest structural advantage with you. Now let's discuss the downside of ISK. ISK is very powerful but not perfect. The first drawback of ISK is that you have to pay the tax even if you are losing the money. Assume the market is down by 20% in a year, but you still need to pay the ISK tax because the tax is based on your account value and not on the actual profits. So during the bad year, ISK can be painful. Also, if you make the losses in the ISK, then you cannot compensate that loss with the other income as well. Another disadvantage of the ISK is that it's not ideal for the short-term cash holdings. If you hold a large cash position inside the ISK for the long term, you still need to pay the tax. ISK work best when you invested and expect the return above ISK tax rate. Another drawback of the ISK is that the foreign dividend withholding tax. If you hold the US dividend paying stock inside the ISK, then there can be a withholding tax also. If your strategy is to heavy the US dividend paying stocks, then the traditional brokerage account might be slightly better. So you can consider the alternative if you are planning to move abroad soon. You invest only in the fixed income with the low return expectation. You hold the cash position mostly and you expect the consistently low returns. Otherwise, ISK is incredibly powerful. So at the end, here is a bigger perspective. Sweden has built one of the most investor-friendly system in the world. You have the strong investment culture, clear and transparent tax rules, incredibly easy digital platforms, and on the top of that, accounts like the investment saving account or ISK makes the long-term investment extremely easy and the tax efficient. In many other countries, investors have to deal with the complicated capital gain tax every time when they sell their holdings. But in Sweden, the system is designed to make the investment simple and accessible to everyone. And very few countries in the world that are able to combine all these advantages together. So if you are living in Sweden and not using an ISK, you are basically making one of the biggest financial mistakes. So with this note, I would like to thank you for watching this video, and if you would like me to make the more video on any topic related to the wealth, money, investment and personal finance in Sweden, let me in the comment below. I will see you in the next video. Until then, goodbye.